Hey everyone, this is Stingray coming to you from somewhere outside of Ozona. I'm on the way to Salt Lake City. By the time you see this, I'll already have been in Salt Lake City and possibly returning. I'm not really sure. What I am sure of is that there's a consistent theme that seems universally wrapped in one particular thread that I'm tugging at. And some of us are listening and we want to hear the message. We just don't know how we want to hear the message. So we're on this decision-making journey together as to whether or not we believe in a higher power. I know I do. In fact, a higher power just flew right over me. Every time I say something that I think is relevant, even as a mirror, as a reflection to myself, to hear, usually it's emphasized with a profound sighting of some sort, like a bird flying over. Now, I'm headed out to Salt Lake City to run an errand, even though it might be considered something else in different circles. The people that I'm going to be transporting, I know. And it can be challenging to transport people who are really set in their ways. For an example, about a week and a half before this, embarking on this journey, I reached out to one of the participants in this group saying, according to all the local news, we want to get to the national parks early if we're going to want to visit any national parks. Here's the link. Almost immediately, I was met with a response that said, we're on vacation. We're going to do what we always do. So-and-so needs coffee to wake up, so we're going to do it the way we're going to do it. In the past, when I shared knowledge of insight with somebody who cared to mitigate any of the possible bad scenarios that were brewing, in the past, when I would relate something like that, the information would be met with, hey, that's a good idea. Let's try to mitigate this issue by what can we do? Prepare your own coffee in the room. Let's get some healthy snacks. Let's eat foods that help us stay healthy and vigorous, vital. Vitamins. Let's have some nourishment, some real, true nourishment. So I'm recording this as I'm about to embark on this journey. There are so many things that are coming to mind where mostly I want to talk about why it is so important to reestablish those levels of communication that we have somehow overlooked. And we've overlooked these difficulties communicating for far too long. If, for an example, on top of all of the difficulties of shuttling around people who are going to make it difficult to get into the places that they were visiting this state for, if there were knowledge presenting this information and you shared it up the chain, well, as the group leader, I'm going to tell you, this is how I'm going to do it to bypass those troubles. If you're not willing to participate, that's fine. It's your dime. That dime, that shilling that you're giving to me is my amount of votes, where I can actually say, this is what I voted for. You know, my reusable, in different sizes even, my reusable cups that come with me are still made by our fathers. There are some new forward-thinking aspects to the fact that this is far superior to always getting one-time use cups and throwing them away. Any one of that one cup use product could be triplicated in thickness, and it could be a reusable cup, a forever cup. Why in these eras does it get so difficult to share things that are being actually handled by people who want to beautify the world and not just leave all these pieces of tire strewn about the highway? It's never going to be picked up until we pick up the pieces. So when we think about going on these vacations, how much prep work it takes, how much mental fortitude it takes to basically fly in the face of adversity, because there's adversity. Do not ever mistake the fact that I'm showing you these trips and telling these stories for anything other than a conversation about wellness and conservation and how those go hand in hand. You're not watching this by mistake. This is being broadcast prior to the completion of your own journey. It's certainly being presented prior to the completion of my journey. The choices that I was faced with when I was facing adversity. How did I overcome that? How did I thwart? You know what I was thinking and was about to say. How did I thwart adversity? Have you ever taken a knee, like really taken a knee for some stance other than whatever the common happenstance is now? In other words, one phrase and slogan or another will certainly cause outrage in another side, from another side of the perspective, because we've been divided. We've been divided enough to where we theoretically could be conquered. You don't feel that in your heart. You know that we will not be conquered. The true bringers of light can't be darkened out. We can't be blotted out. We're too bright. That shining ember in the darkest of darks against the coldest of colds has always found a way into our heart. And we know truth, and truth feeds our heart. And when our heart beats with passion, there's nothing like it. You can see it on the face, even on the face of the deceased. You can see it. And I say that because I passed 3 baby deer. And it might sound odd, but if you've ever watched the movie American Beauty, you'll understand the same concept. This deer, this baby deer, was smiling. There's no doubt about it. On one of the 3 that I saw. It's like when my own pet has a smile. Frozen in death, the baby deer had a smile. How do you think that its journey to the afterlife was after that? And what a difference to pass away excited. What is all this place? I'm in this beautiful world. My mom's here. Boom! The temporal body is taken from the deer. Whether you believe that an animal has a conscience or not, a consciousness, whether or not you believe, you have to feel your heart and understand, what does my heart say? Can I see in the animals a reflection of myself? I can. In all of the animals. Comprende? Todos los animales son similaridades. Is that a word? Similaridades. Están la misma cosa. It's the same thing. I bet you, when we speak with our heart, between animals and ourselves even, I bet you we can see each other truly smile. I just took a life to say that. I saw it. It was a big butterfly. Do you know how it's like that's how few animals I hit when I'm driving anymore, which it's my own fault. I've driven so many miles when there was an abundance and we could literally drive through swarms of things that we maybe didn't give a whole lot of mental thought process to. Somewhere in your heart you're looking at me and saying, man, that guy looks so familiar. I don't know, I hear him, I want to talk with him, but he's so arrogant. That's a judgment. I could look at anybody's video and say the same thing. They're arrogant. They're just being themselves. Each of us are ourselves. We are free to do something. For as long as we have every one of those attributes to do something, we may move about the cabin. With or without anxiety. The way that I was talking for this entire passionate speech may be causing anxiety in you, even though you know it's not anxiety, it's something else. It's your heart beating. When your heart beats again, you can't stand it. If you've never been subjected to it, it feels like anxiety. The love, the overwhelming love, when you see in your own animal's reflection that love, that smile, you can recognize it. It's universal. Even in the most stoic of people you see, emotion is universal. It's why you're listening to this point and you're like, why am I listening for more than 10 minutes to this guy talking about, what's he even talking about? Talking about I'm going on this journey where I'm going to be shuttling a couple around, and this couple has varying levels of responsibility. Like we all do. We each have our own varying level of responsibility. And that's fine. And it's also my opportunity to help us as a group to do something different. It's the second cooler I've seen on the road. I have one with me. Imagine if we cared for these items that we had, how much we would have passed down that wouldn't have just been donated away, divvied up, and sold for $3,000 a plot, or however much plots cost anymore. I really don't know. I know that I worked in a funeral service industry for a brief amount of time. It was prepaid funeral sales. I had to dress up a lot in a suit. It was hot. People who know me know that I get kind of sweaty if it's hot. I really must have always been so nervous that I was ready to break a sweat at any variation in my whole being, especially a temperature variation. Humidity is certainly something that I experienced in Houston. Houston, do we have a problem? I believe that many of our people are addicted to different things, and these addictions are so telltale that it's almost the same as talking about a basic spiritual concept called being grateful. When we're grateful for the things that are around us, we take pride, we take compassion, we take consideration, we take pause. We take a moment and we look at. We can't help but look at. It's not objectifying. We can't help but look at that which is beautiful. We can't help but look at the green, luscious bushes that are right here lining this cut. A granite passageway cut through the earth so that I could more conveniently use my time machine to make it all the way across a significant portion of the nation in under 24 hours. How could I do that? Well, I'll tell you what. The energy that comes from the things that are good for us, that we're supposed to do, that we're supposed to acknowledge, and we're supposed to live as we each are, that's what brings your health and vitality back. That's what brought some together in order to preserve what's out here right now. Some of your roles are to protect that which you were put here to protect. And some of us were born to protect that which was maybe even unaware that it needed protection. Why during this period of turmoil would I be required as a transporter? Is it because of my amazing driving skills, or that I'm able to perceive that beauty so much that I pay attention to the one bug that we've hit on this 87-degree day, where I see birds, I see animals, roadkills, including the deer with the frozen baby smile. What a violent, quick, sudden death. Anyone would be so lucky if they were smiling and that happy at that moment. Is that how we take the food that we eat? Is the food that we're eating herded through in panic, in haste? What's the byproduct of all of that haste? The more that we think about how we enjoy time with one another, the more we can also comprehend how we enjoy time without one another. To be comfortable with oneself, inspired, fully energized, and to be able to do that with someone else, that's a blessing. Not many people want to have the long conversations. That's why I started talking about faith. Because it's faith plus action. That's why many who are unwilling to commit to a level of thought that says, yeah, just because I'm right doesn't mean you're not right. That's how I feel. I've got a lot to learn, but I know what makes my heart beat. What makes my heart beat is when I get to experience this journey with you. So why are we experiencing this journey in this particular way? We're separated. Why are we separated? Maybe we are all in command of being the person who brings someone on a journey. Even if it's virtually, like in this channel that you're watching right now, which I hope that you're subscribing to, by the way. Don't forget to click like and type amen. Or a woman, you know? What is it? What's the word? We don't know because we're too busy getting offended. To understand the levels of offense, you have to start understanding, what do we judge? Are we judging that someone didn't attend a service? That's where you're supposed to help lift someone's spirits. Am I lifting your spirit right now by talking about this subject for those who this is really relevant to? Or are you feeling a little bit sad? Is it because you know that I've been undernourished myself and my sadness is possibly the same as your grief? I don't know. Only a non-judgmental approach to that could have ever allowed for that growth to happen right then, instead of just being judgmental, innocent until proven guilty. If you're not thinking with the better side of yourself, you're thinking negative thoughts. That's where the faith part came into play over and over. Negative thoughts, they're as easy to see as you and me, or is it you and I? What does it matter? I was trying to make a pun and make something rhyme, something to smile at. You guys have seen my videos. Have you ever seen the video when I said the Our Father to a garter snake? If you have not seen that video, understand that the way I'm talking with you is how I would talk with nature if nature was understanding me at a high level. In general, the way I talk with nature is quite a bit more subdued, quiet, respectful, reverent, which is why when I sing my songs, maybe they were out of phase. I wasn't singing them in that manner, but these weren't those kind of songs that I wrote in the past. So, when I talk with nature, I have found quite frequently that nature seems to be capable of interacting with us. And so I start to wonder, how much of everything is universal? Was it possible that there was some bearer of peace, someone who walked around, talked about peace, and they believed in it so much that as they talked about it, other people couldn't help but feel threatened because what they thought of as peaceful was actually quite judgmental. If there were a level of peace that some of you are possibly hating on me for, knowing full well that it didn't exist, even though we know it probably could have existed. If there were this bearer of peace walking around right now, talking about how to heal one another, they would probably recommend something for someone who is feeling a little bit out of phase that was pleasant, like, hey, take a break. That's what I recommend. Definitely take a break. Take some time in nature. It's the only way you can begin to start to see past the programming of having to get a coffee to start that day of bounty. How do we move past talking about addiction? First, we have to recognize that there's a problem. Once we recognize there's a problem, then we can move past that problem. We just have to be able to communicate, able to comprehend. Everyone's hearing the same story. Everyone's seeing the same things because of this mass communication medium. Why is it so difficult to share the miracles that happen without some kind of sponsorship? What is it that keeps faith from being paired with action, if not that one decision of free will? And if we have free will to rebuke the universe, the creator, the salvation, the higher power that would, anything that was alive would smile to be alive because of, if they were free. And in that moment, that baby deer was free as could be, looking around. What is all of this stuff going on? I'm driving through a cut canyon. It's daytime for me right now. The skies are blue. I'm making excellent progress because of these fair conditions. There are hardly no bugs that I'm hitting, which is causing excellent visibility. The road is as bumpy as could be. It's turbulent on these roads. But my steed is the real deal. I can drive over anything in this vehicle, but I tread lightly. And at the same time, what an overwhelming amount of consumption that it took for me to get this vehicle to bring to you the message of wellness and conservation, and why I believe it takes a little bit of a spark in faith from humanity that can only be kindled by action. Not just emojis and doing the same thing over and over. If the same thing is resulting in the same tire shreds all over the highway with very little to zero butterflies flying by, and roads that are neglected, where are the people going to be who are doing the work? If you're watching this video and you know that you can do that work yourself, amen. I can do that work. I can do it. Wherever I'm at, I want to be a part of this, healing this community with every bit of my being. With every bit of my being, I want to be of service to my fellow global, intergalactic species and all of our kin. All of our relatives, no matter what galaxy or power or being you believe in, I'll tell you, there is nothing more amazing, let's see if this side is any different, than finding what's right for you. This side is actually a little bit better. It looks the exact same as the other side. So, as you're hearing these messages and going, man, you're so passionate, I understand what you're talking about, but it's such a long story, it's so varied, it's hard to focus on all of this. You know what I'm talking about naturally. If you're watching this, you get it, subscribe, and don't worry about watching anymore. Do your part. Spit out some watermelon seeds outside. Maybe a patch will grow. At my grandfather's house, The house that my father burned down, and that the rest of the family, for whatever reason, has been continuing to keep me in the smokescreen over. My grandfather one time spat out watermelon seeds right off of the patio. And a wild plant grew, and we got to enjoy wild right out of the ground that we were tending to watermelon. That was one of the most exciting days of my childhood. If a car would have hit me right then, like in the movie Pet Sematary, after they picked me up and saw me smiling, nobody would want to change that. It's like, that's it. Yeah, that was sad. That guy, there's nobody that has died happier than that. That's how I feel right now. We've all made mistakes. When we hold to a judgment, that's almost just a safety net that's saying, I trust you, but I'm not going to trust you with that kind of information. That's too personal. Isn't that the freedom that we claim to want for one another? It's not very personal to want us to be happy all day. When we're judging something all day, and there are two different phases of thoughts that we can have, positive or negative. When we judge all day, we start to see more of the things that are troublesome. And that can be addictive. It can be so addictive that we start to watch those kind of pieces of content all the time. Because that's what brings us a level of stimulation that makes our heart feel something. But is it panic, or is it beating because it's like, wow, this guy's talking about the thing that no one wants to talk about, the thing that we can agree to disagree on? How is that any kind of agreement when the word disagree is in there? That phrase, that's a conspiracy theorist type phrase. Agree to disagree on. That sounds like made up stuff. There are a lot of things that are made up, including the very thoughts that we have about, hey, I've got to eat a meal right now. Hey, I've got to eat a meal right now. Hey, it's got to include these things. Hey, it's got to include these things. I thought that this was an uncommon thing until it was told to me just recently by another person. They said, I don't eat any meat. I have, during the week, chicken and rice, steamed chicken, broccoli, tomatoes. How common is it for us to be so stifled and so easily tripped by wording that we think meat is beef? The animal that we're eating, whether it's chicken, cow, snake, goat, turkey, whatever our festivities dictate, whatever meat we're eating, is it putting a smile on the face of that which is being consumed? Or is it putting inevitable frowns on the face of that which is being harvested? That might be why we have trouble hearing things from one another. I'm using a line. It's like on an EKG. Doot, doot, doot. We're hearing things. We're almost hearing things out of phase because somebody's heart's beating faster than someone else's heart. Don't be anxious. When you're not anxious, you can focus on a full story and understand. I'm driving away from San Antonio. I'm about an hour from Del Rio, I think. No. From Fort Stockton. I was dropped on my head early as a child. Forgive me for sometimes not recalling immediately a number, name, date. Some of those things I can't tell you as clearly, and yet I've documented those things as truths so that you can understand where my shortcomings are. We all have shortcomings. We're all gifted at certain things. Everything that we do is better when we have a positive mindset, when we have faith and put in action miracles. When we have faith and just watch TV, we're not putting out any action. In fact, we're being programmed to think a certain way. When we have faith and we just go through the motions, we'll respond in any way. If someone says, hey, we probably want to wake up early because, look, here's a newsletter, a news segment about this. We will not respond in haste saying, we're going to do whatever we do. We're entitled. We're not going to put someone down or put someone in that position and tell them that it's a waste of breath to talk about these things. We're not. To talk about faith and to talk about improving and to use examples so that people can literally see what it is that the spiritual battle looks like and believe in it and go, wow, there are also miracles that come with all of these pitfalls that we're being exposed to. Did you hear all those? The cars shuddering as I pass over these pitfalls in this practically military grade, amazing vehicle. I enjoy it. I enjoy it very much, and I feel like there's one sticker in here that I need to replace almost immediately, unless it'll stick. Miracles happen whenever we put action together with our faith. When we don't put those things together, we continue to recognize we're just dying a slow death. And then, as we're standing there with our parents, with our offspring, with our offspring of our best friends, as we're doing that, we're going to recognize, man, I could be smiling and joyful the whole time. This is amazing what we just got to see. Why did we have those experiences, those delays that caused us these frustrations? Was it just so we could see one another? I'm passing a large RV called Georgetown Forest River. I wonder where that's at. I've got some sandals that I really love, and I've heard of this place. This sticker is called, it's from Chaco Canyon. Never would have known of that place until someone, a best friend of mine, showed me that place. I would love it if that sticker was not going to continue falling and peeling itself off. I think that conversations need to be had, and our fathers, they may not necessarily be to blame, but when you have generational programming that's going on, it might be hard to see. We can be blind-sighted. I could have written the perfect album for 2020. It was called Hindsight. The support that comes with faith-based, real faith-based action is very minimal. If you're collecting a paycheck literally, you might want to do the math and check. Is it plastic or is it cash? What are you being paid in? What's your energy? Credit or solar? You just really can't be thwarted when you're working on and in tandem with succeeding. As you saw, I just moved over and moved back over. The moved over because there are two vehicles that are going way less than the speed limit. Adaptive cruise control got me into gear, going the right speed, so to speak. But it wasn't until I moved over that the person who was going slow in the fast lane said, I should move over. It's going to take probably 8 miles for me to pass. So they moved over. I passed. And as it turns out, both of those vehicles are still going about the same speed limit. When we can't recognize that even our hindrance of this extremely beautiful pipeline of communication, by not sharing substance and relevance, when we recognize that we're not doing that and choose to not move, that's a lack of faith. If you have faith, I would love it if you shared a video that you found relevant at some point, because somebody else will find it relevant. I know this. I know this because I'm speaking from my heart. It's beating. You can feel it. I can feel your heart beating. I can move over when I see vehicles pulled over. I can do it far in advance after calculating if I'm going to slow somebody down or not. I can do that all while seeing whether or not there's a fawn in front of me on the road. I can't do the impossible, though. I can't see through the dark. I can only be granted safe passage by the higher power. Right now, I follow my instinct. I don't overdrive my headlights. I have spotlights for when it's really dark and there's really an isolated amount of road that I'm traveling. I isolate myself almost the entire way through. Pretty much I only stop for gas. And if there's an isolated rest stop, I'll relieve myself. For the crazy ones in the group, that's not how I meant it. I'll have a snack. What I'll always do, though, is continue to observe the wildlife and to really communicate with the people who are right there in my presence. That's a gift. If you do not like to really communicate, well, we'll have these parts in our heart that are questions. Questions are like stones. You can either throw them at one another, have them extracted via surgery, or dissolve them away peacefully. Did you like that dissolve effect? Where I just totally turned a whole different color? That was because of the lighting. Sometimes I watch these videos and I see little flashes. I see color changes. I see the sun as it passes back and forth behind me or in front of me or wherever. Well, not in front of me, because on the video screen it'd be behind me. You see what I'm saying? I'm carrying on conversation in a different perspective to tell you a story with a narrative that I hope makes a meaningful nourishment to your heart. I hope that this is meaningful content. I hope that you're learning with me by suggesting other tips from insight that you've also learned from. I hope that you recognize one another on the roads. Say hi. I hope that we are those children of whatever power we subscribe to. Just as much as we are the caregivers of ourselves. so that we can all smile through these challenging times in ways that help us to understand that even when we're miles and miles apart, we're still on the same page. When I said that phrase, miles and miles apart, social isn't social when we're miles and miles apart. The only way to get there is together, so let's start. I wrote some fun songs that had lyrics that were talking about this very concept. And I know that I can sing a lot better. But I also know that I was still finding my voice. Some of us are still finding our voice, the inner voice that says quietly, not in fear, not lunging at or lashing out at, not in fear. The quiet voice says, hey, let me hear, what's your perspective? This is a shared experience. Sharing is caring. I may share my mugs or my water containers with everyone. Sharing is caring. We used to do those kind of things. I really do want to share my insight that talks about wellness and conservation, because it does make a difference in our own experience in terms of how we proceed through life. Are we falling apart at the seams? Are we locked in rage, or are we there enchanted with a smile? Do we have faith? Have we put in any of that action? I'm behind two more vehicles doing that same thing, where one vehicle is like, they're not really moving too much faster. Maybe we are holding up traffic one another for shipping anything, anywhere, at any time, while still, side by side with that, having so many now hiring signs. There are a lot of jobs to transport a lot of things. There are not a lot of opportunities to actually experience time in person with your loved ones. The mud flaps up ahead say R plus L, whatever that means. RLC. R plus L carriers. And they're not really going that much slower. I think the speed limit is 80. They were going 70. That's a huge load for these vehicles to be carrying and still be able to slow down for the wildlife, if there is any wildlife on the road. I don't know. What I do know is that I'm grateful that things have been able to get transported back and forth from other areas to where I reside, because that means I've been able to get the parts I need to complete the projects that I believed were calling to me for some purpose that fit within the circle of people and my mind went in two different directions. It said, who are sometimes jerks, circle of, let's not go there, to a circle of people who are sometimes supposed to be working with me that I sometimes find are working against me. How can I attribute that to anything except for a spiritual battle? Because I know that nobody would want to willingly destroy what I was trying to create. Wellness and conservation. Who would want to destroy? Who would want to kill, steal, and destroy? I used to steal. Maybe in a lot of ways, I recognize that we still are stealing. Even if we're just stealing our heart to where we can't hear enough to respond to someone who's asking for help, that's stealing. If you can help and you can't, and you decide you can't do it, that's stealing. It's all outlined. I don't even need to read a book. It's just what I know in my heart. If we can help one another, and I know we can, to pick up all this rubbish that's on the sides of the roads, and on the roads in many cases. And if we could reduce our inexcusable decisions to just follow trends without ever looking up to see how many or how few insects we were hitting along the way. If we could look up for just a moment to understand kind of slim pickings. It's why the birds are sometimes more visible in your yards than they are in their natural environments right now. I'm not saying that's the case for everything, but there are changes that are happening around us that are not part of the mainstream media. And only an observer of wildlife, who you know, in some cases, could bring to the table. But only if our fathers would talk about these things at the table to begin with. Isn't it why some of our fathers have not even joined us at the table when we've been inviting them to call and talk with us? Really talk with us about forgiveness? About accepting responsibility? I don't know. I just know that I can go in the direction that my heart is calling, and for whatever reason, I'm still able to talk with you, to communicate with you. Now, whether this communication is two-way, multi-way, or just in one ear and out the other, that's up to each participant. Here in public, where observations are not judgments, they're just common trends that we notice among many people. Here in public, when we talk about the danger to society when someone has not accepted responsibility, especially as our levels of protection are just eroded away, like the rubber stripping on the tires that's before the steel radial belt that holds them together in many cases. Even as this iteration continues to unravel, as we bring this insight to you, to light, I just passed a cottontail, or actually it looked like a jackrabbit because its ears were longer. As we tell you the very few things that we hit, the further and further away we get from society, the more we get into the wild sometimes. It may or may not be relevant. Or it might actually be 100% tied in to the wellness and conservation story on the person whose channel that you're watching, on the person who's on the channel for the person who you're watching. What brought you to this channel today, if not the curiosity of learning what faith and what judgment look like a little bit more accurately, so that you yourself can help me to look in the mirror when I have a misperception. I hope that makes sense to you. I know it should make sense to me. I believe both the egocentric side and the spiritual side of myself can agree to agree. If we don't watch out, when we cut one, the other bleeds as well. If we are not aware enough to have compassion with every challenging situation that we are presented, we might let something escalate, especially with someone who is out of control. It's easy until those angels nearly run over the agitated and they're confronted by these irresponsible presences. But the angel, for whatever reason, is able to openly and with gratitude say, hey, I know that you're upset. It's possible everyone's upset. That's no reason to take it out on someone else. That's no reason to disavow the knowledge that that person is bringing to you. And that's certainly no reason to not talk with that person. The curiosity should be a quiet, calm voice asking, saying, hey, it seems like you reached out for a reason. It seems like we are touching bases for a reason. Are we playing the same game? Which rules do we genuflect to and pledge allegiance to? Are there not a higher set of standards that also encompass those rules that we agree to participate by under the governance that our fathers have helped to back up? Whether or not they can back them up still, that doesn't matter. And by they, I mean all of us. How could I possibly back up being able to do the easy work that I did and have so many meetings to mull over all of the details without ever really doing as much of the work as I should have been doing, but getting paid like as if I was a king? How else could I accept that? I guess with shame. I'm not ashamed. We were taught not to be ashamed by the peaceful. We weren't taught to become shameful. When we're not ashamed, we're able to accept different information and change our minds in ways that make sense. We adapt to the circumstances, the rubbish that's strewn about on the highway around us. We adapt to understand that there's a decline, a collapse of a possible entire ecosphere. We agree that, yeah, something's a little bit off with the weather sometimes. And then we start to wonder, maybe there is something to this faith thing. Some of the stories that we're going to hear are going to be swept under the rug, first of all. And when you do hear the stories, it'll often be because of some kind of a blind faith referral that someone finally saw the message and said, this is pretty deep stuff. I've noticed miracles in my own life. I'm going to share this because I know it multiplies the miracles. Or we can continue to be silent. The silent, I see the statistics. I see that this is being watched. I know it might be even being watched by mostly artificial intelligence. And then it's just kind of blocked off to just allow certain people to see it, because maybe the general public isn't ready for this. But any intelligence that is of a higher state of mind than my own, and I don't mean able to process it faster, I mean able to process it fully. Any intelligence that can see something through fully has compassion. It can learn to communicate with one another. That smile on the deer, you and I could see that in person if we talked to the deer the right way. If mom didn't teach it to be afraid of us, why should mom fear us? Is she fearing us because she's generalizing about some segment that might go out, just to survive? When we know we can also go without sometimes? I don't know. Faith is a tricky thing. You have to read fully into what you're subscribing to or not subscribing to in order to feel less nervousness, less anxiety about the conflict that happens within our own heart, about the beating. How does it beat? Are the chambers open? Or are the chambers loaded? It's hard to say. Negative thoughts probably would trigger something differently. So you have to be careful as to which one you hear and bow to. You're bowing to something because you have free will. If you have free will and you literally have set your own house on fire, who did you bow to? Do you have faith? If someone asked you for help and they didn't have your number because you didn't want to share that, or nobody in your family wanted to share that, and you sent a letter to this person asking for help, if you received a letter from this person asking for help, how would you feel? Depends on which side you're on and why you made the decision. Is your heart tough, like a rocky road? Is it nimble enough to continue beating that message as fervently as it's been beating? I don't want to help, I don't want to help, I don't want to help, I don't want to help. That takes a lot of energy. I do want to help. The easiest thing to do to help is to move in the right direction, talk with the people that you're gifted the opportunity to talk with. And to continue with the theme, the next back of this trailer that I'm passing, that will give you this one's called Edge. That'll give you the edge. And it has a skull of almost what looked like a piranha. It had the skeleton of what looked like a piranha on it. You'll have the edge. You'll be a devoured piranha yourself. But you'll have the edge. I've had a travel trailer. I hauled it with something that was even more than this. Took friends and family on trips. We had a good time. It was probably less resources to have done it properly a different way. For sure would have been less expensive. So I start wondering about the whole concept of trailers. Trailers have been mentioned a couple of times in some of the conversations I'm having about a whole different topic. And really what we're looking to do is to make something work for the person that's going to be the resident of that location. So to look into the future as we're designing these situations that we're experiencing with one another, I ask you, did you need to wake up every morning to modify your behavior because someone was trying to make it painful for you to achieve something? Or did you continue to go out of your way to drink the cool drink or the hot drink because that's what was told to you. Sometimes by our very fathers. Maybe because I rejected my own father's actions so much, I somehow negotiated the minefield of becoming an alcoholic. I somehow negotiated the minefield of becoming substance abusive. I'm still drinking sugary drinks. I've still got blueberries. I still started my day with something fresh from nature. I still have gratitude for all of it, including the packaging that I see strewn on the road. It makes me think, thank God for all of those corporate workers who brought us these amazing things that we could experience, for those of us who could experience them. And please, God, let's find a way collectively to let other people experience something like these amazing times. How do we continue that? How can I do the work? How can I pick up the trash all over the road? How can I monetize that? How can I do it if our fathers can't hear anything that we're saying? Because it literally takes a letter asking somebody to, hey, respond to this, and then to be shunned by an entity that says, I can't even understand it. And then you literally send a letter to 4 people. It's word for word, almost the exact same. Just had a couple of words transposed here and there because I was trying to write them in a hurry. But literally, it's the same exact words across the board. And out of the 4 people, 1 person who formerly would not hear heard the letter, heard the words, heard the songs. The other 3, it's like being in a society where someone tells you, I don't eat meat, because they want to agree with you. They're on the same page. I don't eat meat. I have chicken, tilapia. It's like you started with meat. You started with meat. How can you have a conversation with people who do not speak the same language? There are movies about this. People used to laugh at these movies. But now, they can watch these movies and maybe be offended. If that's what's happening when you're watching this movie as I'm talking, you're becoming offended, it's because you're following a hierarchy. You're following a hierarchy that says, I've got to judge this guy's thoughts based on this, or else I won't fit in with what? What do you want to fit in with? And does it want you to fit in with it? If something doesn't truly love, you might as well just be entertainment value yourself. Where the courtesy of knowing the name of this person bringing you your plate today to serve it up hot and steaming, where that courtesy of knowing someone's name doesn't even exist hardly. We hardly collectively recognize that the overabundance of Bluetooth speakers in the forest has nearly drowned out even the very inkling of sounds from nature whatsoever. And so to go to these places that are overly overloaded, to try and experience peace, I'm going to do my best that I can to bring that to you, because that's what you need. If anyone is going to have to give energy to console the living, it's probably those who are not as directly related as a sibling. So I'm going to be providing the services that I'm providing to people I know. We're going to be having a variety of experiences. I'm passing this one trailer that's called Elevation. It's got a flat tire. I saw another vehicle with a flat tire just a while ago. And they both, well, the trailer, they're going to know how to do their work. The person before that, they definitely knew what they were doing. And sometimes I wonder, am I supposed to stop to help? Sometimes things will run right into your path, smiling or terrified. And the only thing you can do is try to bring about calm to the situation. One time, I'm going to leave you with this story and then we'll get to it. This will be, I don't know which day's post, but I'm going to leave you with this story. This is about the day that I've departed so that I could get 1,000, well, I don't remember how many miles, but 24 hours away from where I am with basically no stopping time except for gas. I'm going to attempt to do this while also stopping to see the things that I want to see, maximizing my own time, in other words. And I'm going to do that so I can regain the joy that's needed to help, to put in the effort, to clean up the situation that's in front of us, to wipe the tears if there needed to be tears that would need to be wiped, and to help those who are terrified of the future and the aftermath of what happens when we are no longer physically controlling this shell. Then we'll recognize that judgment is so pervasive that we can judge the very gifts that are received from somebody and make a situation out of that. There's a movie. We just watched a movie about it. I'm trying to remember what it was called. I won't remember in time to finish this video. But in that movie, there was someone who received a gift and they just basically disregarded it. Thought it was meaningless. It turned out to be the gift that saved the person's life. All of us have gifts. Put those gifts into action. Don't try to render first spiritual aid by saying, you just need to pray to God. Anytime I get troubled, I pray to God. What you need to hear is what you just said. So the first step is look at the mirror and go, what does this person need? I know what they need because I looked in the mirror. This person needs compassion from the family, not just from one person, especially not just from one person they despise, from the rest of the family. Really what they need, though, is to make their own decision to be happy in the place where they're at. Otherwise, they may burn the house down, no matter where they live. It's the truth. It's what's bringing us together in this unusual circumstance where you're hearing stories that you didn't think you were going to be hearing, but you're hearing them anyway. And it's brought to you with compassion. I don't want to cause panic. So I do my best to give you the opportunity to ride along with me where I'm talking about wellness and conservation, miracles, signs that are happening right in front of us, like all the strewn tire bits and not any more insects since the last time. It's a pretty interesting, challenging a level of awareness to comprehend, to vote on, and to climactically make a difference. How do we do those things if not together? How do we do those things if not with our fathers and our mothers? How do we do those things? Your guess is as good as mine, but action is never the wrong place to start. So when you're able to put action to your faith, there's nothing more amazing than that. There's nothing that's more penetrating to the heart than putting action to passion, putting action to faith. It's the same thing. How you see it, how it's perceived, is up to which side of the mind is hearing it. Some things are funny because it's funny that they're true, but they're also true in a true way, maybe even a truer way than what we heard before. Like recently here, it was the Independence Day. Independence. If we are in depends, we are in a pamper. If we are in dependence, we are independence. So on my day, I said Happy Undependence Day. I don't depend on anything. I do it myself. However, there are some things, many things, that I cannot do on my own, and I require the assistance of other people. But for my own persistence, my own livelihood, I don't need much. I can even go without food. I can especially go without meat, especially if I find out that one is overwhelmingly more taxing to the general public than the other. Especially if I learn that one is entirely more devastating to our health and also to our loved ones, both those loved ones who are here and also those who have passed on. I remember all of the time since I was awakened in violence where I was thrown into a tub because I wet myself. I remember how to interact with adults to avoid conflict. I don't want to have conflict. I for sure do not want to be the cause of violence or a sudden awakening to somebody that's traumatic. I only want my own independence. I don't want to have to continue to be subservient to a system where I must continue the subscription to visiting for trinkets, the souvenir shop, where none of what was made in the country to which you claim to want to invest your dollars into. Who are you pumping those credits into? And have you been doing it for free? These are our own mothers, Mother Nature, that have been getting pumped for free. But the taxes we're paying on that free pumping, and I know it costs us to get gasoline, so I know it sounds silly to say that, but really, isn't there, that's just a sliver of our income in most of the countries where those of us looking at our information through a screen are at. It's a sliver, it's a part of the taxes. At some point in the past, someone taught me that you can turn your living into your career. I've been very clear about what I'm doing. I'm not trying to make money off of anything. I don't want to make money off of anything. I only want to accomplish successfully what I'm setting out to accomplish for the purpose of bringing joy to those around me. There's one particular person who I've tried to bring joy to for a long time, for as long as I've been aware. And it's a tough conversation. The approach angles have all been different, unique, compelling. I've written songs. Wellness and conservation is a subject that must touch on the faith aspect of what we are able to perceive, because when I mention those topics to this person, it's like they are repelled as if they're a vampire being faced with a crucifix. One time I breached this subject in a group, and someone called me. They said I was gaslighting. One time I breached the subject of hierarchy in a group, and someone said I was a sexist. At no point have I wanted any inequality among anybody. And for whatever reason, only some of what I'm saying is heard. And so people will tell me over and over, well, you need to pray. You're worried. I am praying. You hear it in my videos. You're going to see it when I show you this clip of the snake. Whether you see that clip or not because you don't want to see something, because you've judged. Words and actions are very interesting in that they each tell a tale. Our words tell a tale. Our actions tell another tale. Cedar Creek. That was the trailer going the other way. Broken down. There's another trailer ahead of me broken down. I'm going to see if I can see this name for you too. Like I said, I was going to cut this short. I'm coming up on my exit. So I think it said Ray Allen or something like that. It definitely looked like the word Ray. Broken down, going the other way. Well, it's because they're going the other way. This way Ray is not breaking down. This way Ray is blessed with everything he needs to overcome the most compelling, the most challenging obstacles ever. I can drive through those situations like nobody's business. I can, under the cover of darkness or in full exposure to light, take a nap in the bed that I have right here that's full size. And all I need to do is stop for gas, keep going. I don't have to continue to subscribe to getting coffee in the morning to plan my day out. Getting coffee at night, getting a sleep, getting a good night's sleep, having comfort. Comfort is a luxury. When things are dying around you, when places are being set on fire, when family is falling apart, I don't even need to sleep. I will fight for as long as it takes to stay awake so that I can share the love. I don't even need to fight. I'll stay awake the whole night through with you to share the love. That's all we've got to share in this world. No money, no belongings, no piece of temporary, even these things that are fossilized that'll last for generations. It's temporary. All of it's temporary. The only thing that's here right now is your choice to make a free decision. Does that free decision cost anybody? Does it pay anything? Does it result in any kind of a smile? Does it make your heart beat? If it makes your heart beat in a way that's funny, but not funny like you're about to die from it funny, it makes it beat in a funny way where you might break a sweat, your obstacle is the way through. My need to communicate with everybody brought me through the circles that brought me through to your channel today. Even though this day, again, it's going to be shared quite some time after the day that it was recorded on. So, I hope you understand what I'm saying. I'm not telling the future. I'm just describing a situation in a way that maybe can be heard by someone who was unable to hear it before because they had rocks in their heart. I hope we cleared out some of that gravel. I hope that you see that your health has changed, just like mine has. How we think about someone else is what happens to us. It's just a matter of strength now. Who has more strength? I feel like I'm pretty strong. I feel like I'm pretty adaptable. I've showcased what I've been doing recently to keep in order. Hope that you guys are keeping in order. Keep your place in order. Keep yourself in order. Everything else will come to order around you. Have a great day. Thank you so much for subscribing, for liking, for sharing these videos, for clicking on the description and reading the description, for sharing what you've shared to help me keep on track. I appreciate it so much, and I could not have enjoyed this journey without you. Peace, love, and all that old school stuff.